So my name is Andrea Courey, and I'm living in Montreal, Quebec.
Oh,
And about 1991, I started meditating with a group. And in the year 2000, our leader, who I still meditate with 30 years later, believe it or not, brought in the first crystal bowl. And I realized that when you follow the sound of crystal, you really can follow the sound. Your mind doesn't wander left and right, and you receive these incredible vibrations that lift and
oh,
create well-being and peace. And the added advantage, which I had no idea of at the time, was that I too have a child in spirit. And in order to really connect with my daughter and communicate, I needed to lift my vibration. So since we're waiting for people, we're going to do a little bit of sound just to help us, just to feel nice. Now, I don't have my sound set up on. I have no microphone but you can hear me okay?
uh-huh.
So these are chimes. Chimes sort of have their own specific place in a sound session. Sometimes we're really bringing in a lot of vibration and a lot of sound. And then we need to take a break. We need silence. We need to integrate the sound. And to bring everybody back into the sound session, I often use that, the chimes. This is a Tibetan metal bowl. It's a mix of 23 different metals. It was given to me by my son years ago, years before I started doing sound. And it is a very messy sound. It isn't a clear sound like crystal. This is crystal. One note. But metal, especially because it's handmade, you can see there's all kinds of ridges and rough sort of, it's not uh, very smooth. It makes different sounds, but it's really nice. So this is a metal bowl. This is a beautiful grounding sound, and it has a very lovely fade. A fade is just that sound as it goes away. Here we go. Can you hear that okay?
Yes.
Now, usually when I do a sound session, everybody's sound is muted. So you get even a crisper, clearer sound. And I'm in a room with a very loud ticking clock. So I don't know if you can hear that, but normally that wouldn't be in the room either. And often when I do sound, I take people on journeys to whatever comes into my imagination, and learning to trust what comes into my imagination has taken me a long time. It's taken me years. Yeah. So this too is metal. These are symbols. And Dick, whenever you want me to just let go of sound and start, it's up to you. Whatever works for you is fine with me. I'm just happy to be here. So
This
these
is
are,
this is a good introduction, and then you can move right from this introduction right into your story.
why not? Sure. Now, this is really cool. Okay. These are ancient. These are called tingsas. Now, you might have heard of tuning forks. Have you ever heard of tuning forks? So, tuning forks are two separate instruments, right, that are hit together and placed near each ear. And they create a synchronization in the two hemispheres of the brain because they're slightly different vibration. And the brain is such a fascinating balancer. I know I had a major injury in one eye, and now I see really clearly in one and really poorly in the other. And I only wear one contact lens, and I do a lot of skiing. Notice that as I'm skiing, my vision balances out completely, and I can see as well on the right as I can on the left. And the tuning forks, when they're hit and put at each ear, they help the brain balance the hemispheres by having different vibrations, and then the brain finds the common meeting point of the two vibrations. And way before there were tuning forks, there were tinctures, and they do the same thing. It's a little hard to hear it over Zoom. It's basically impossible, but when you hit them, loud, eh? It's a bit loud. Okay, I'll do it a little lower. So when I hit them, and I do a lot of live work with them, I put them at each ear. People are encouraged to close their eyes, focus on the sound, and it brings mental clarity. It's really amazing how well they work. So there you go. Long before there were tuning forks, there were tinctures. What else have I got here to show you? Feel like it's like show and tell or something. So I have found what really matters with sound is intention and flow. You don't need 50 instruments. You need harmony, and you want to create peace and transcendence and bring everybody inside. So you don't want chaos. You want calm. So I use just 4 bowls, and this one is, as you can see, it's got a long stem on it. This is called the therapeutic crystal bowl. This is really cool because even over Zoom, you can breathe. You like that? Angela, I'm gonna, or no, Dick, you have to do it to unmute Angela. She's saying something. Go ahead, Angela.
Angela, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay. You don't know how to do it? I think you can invite Angela to unmute.
Angela, you can unmute yourself if you want to say something.
There you go. There you go.
I was just wondering what that one was called. That bowl that you.
Okay, that one was cold.
Is that a special name for that?
Well, it's called a therapeutic crystal bowl, but
Oh.
it's got a specific note that it's calibrated to on the scale, and that's the note of G. And the note of G corresponds to the throat.
Oh.
Yeah. And what's so fascinating is I do a lot of live sound, and I know now that I have to bring bags of cough drops with me because that note stimulates the throat. And so many people have so much that has been withheld, words that have not been expressed in their lives. And when they hear the bowl, you can't hide from that vibration. And so they begin to cough. It's a fascinating thing. So now when I do my live sessions, I don't even wait for the coughing. At the very beginning of the session, I hand cough drops out to everybody. And of course, everybody laughs and thinks, oh, well, I'm not going to need this. And sure enough, one after another, and we all know that our bodies extend far out beyond our physical self. And this extension is, it's kind of, it needs to be cared for. It needs to be loved and protected. And it's very open to the world around us and to the energy of people around us. So when I use this therapeutic bowl, and because it has a stem, I can move up and down a person's body, it works to help clear all these energies they don't need.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Oh,
cool, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
there you
Would a
go.
would a crystal wine glass have the same effect or a similar?
It will when you hit it. When you hit it, it's of a quality that it vibrates, and it also is carries a certain note. That's why you've heard of opera singers who shatter crystal, because if you can sing the exact same note as the crystal wine glass and then raise the volume up, you have to go louder and louder and louder. Poof. And the coolest thing is that technology, that essence of hitting the note and raising the volume to shatter, is what is being used now to shatter kidney stones.
Wow.
There's a machine that has been developed. It's called a lithotripter machine. And people used to have operations to get rid of these stones, but now they don't have to anymore. The machine determines the vibration of the stone and then raises the volume. And stones just are disintegrated without any invasive surgery. Isn't that cool? And
Oh, it's so
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. But it's also not just for stones. It's now being used in cancer treatment and in, it's called ultrasound therapy, ultrasound surgery. And actually, the Israelis are really, really cutting edge in doing this research and developing different modalities, yeah, with sound and vibration.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really like the surgery of the future. It's not going to need cutting and knives. It's going to use sound and vibration. Yeah.
And I lost a kidney because of this.
Wow. Really? One of that makes me think of something. One of the gifts. It's so funny, you know. I had a near-death experience in 1991, and I was so reticent. I didn't say a word about it for 25 years. I told nobody. I didn't even tell my husband at the time, who was in the same accident.
Oh,
Nobody. And now I was just asked this morning, I'm doing an event in April, at the end of the month, and I was asked to send a bio, you know, a short bio. And I actually cited my near-death experience in the bio. And I thought to myself, wow, come a long way from being afraid to discuss it to actually putting it in your bio, you know? So let's go back. Are we going to start, Dick? It's 10:18. We've had a little sound intro.
Very good. Proceed.
Okay. So I was 31 years old, 1991, and I woke up one morning and I had a vision. Very early morning, I had a vision of an accident. And this was a December morning. So I saw a huge storm. And I saw my husband and I walking down a street on the sidewalk. I saw a car come from behind, and it was I remember the car exactly. It was a dark navy Honda Accord. And this car, in my vision, came down the road behind us, lost control, jumped the sidewalk, and hit us. And then I saw my husband fly through the air, and I heard him say, "Oh my God, we have been hit by a car." And then I woke up and I remember kind of discussing it with myself and thinking, how do you get hit by a car if you're on a sidewalk? And that day was the day of my grandmother's funeral. So I promptly got up, forgot about the vision, and went through the whole day. And at 10 past 10 that night, we were coming out of a reception and we were walking down a street. I just love the timing of this. I just love it. It's like we're all these little divine puppets. We're walking down the sidewalk, and because there was this event in this house, every parking spot on the street was taken. There was only one little single car garage opening as we were walking. And sure enough, we never saw it. It was behind us, but this car came from behind, lost control, jumped up right there in the driveway, right as we were there, and hit us. And as I was going through the air, I heard exactly the words my husband had said in my vision. And so I knew I was being prepared. I knew that I should just not worry. And I also had a kind of flash go through my head that, Andrea, if you're calmer and more relaxed, chances are you'll be less hurt, because I'm a skier. And it's like, if you are more relaxed and you fall, you're less likely to injure yourself. I remember having that thought. And you know what? I have never said that one before when I've talked about my near-death experience, but I remember it now. Relax. And I went about 35 feet down the road, and it was a large boulevard. It was actually a beautiful miracle. No other car hit me. And then I came out of my body. And I looked around and I saw the chaos. There were people coming out of the house. There were cars stopping. There were people screaming. And I looked down and I saw this thing on the road, and I recognized the coat. I said, wait a minute, that's my red coat. And my grandmother, actually, whose funeral it was that day, had told me every woman should have a red coat. And I was wearing this incredibly long, heavy, amazing red coat. It was like my coat of armor when you think about it. So I looked at this thing and then I realized it was me, but it wasn't me, because I was completely and totally above that scene. All my thoughts were with me, all my emotions, all my feelings. I totally remembered the vision that morning. It was like, oh, okay, so this is what it means to be your consciousness. You're not in the body. I saw the chaos. I tried to talk to my husband. I tried to console the woman who had hit us, because she was just completely hysterical and she didn't hear me. Nobody heard me. And I finally said, I'm leaving this scene. I don't need to be part of this scene. And it was a big snowstorm too. It was really chaos. And so I just started to move away. And you know what's cool? You never forget. I always worried, like when I woke up and I was in that ambulance, I was worried I would forget the details. And I'm so glad that you just never forget that. It's the most real thing. So you just never forget. So I moved away and I just felt myself completely and totally enveloped in this loving light. I was not afraid. I was not in pain. I was not attached anymore to that whole huge drama going on the ground. And I was just lifted and taken. And it just lasted like a moment. And then I moved and I saw this figure in front of me. And it seemed like a male to me. Because of my own religious beliefs, it seemed like Jesus was standing in front of me, but I didn't see his face. And this figure was about 10 feet tall. I mean, it was really large, but it was loving, and I wasn't afraid at all. I wasn't afraid. And then he addressed me by name, and he said, Andrea. And I was like, you know my name. You know, we think we are so little and that we don't sort of deserve recognition from the divine. And he knew my name. And I sort of looked like that really got me. And he said, do you want to stay or do you want to go back? And I had 3 little kids at the time. I had a 1, a 3, and a 5-year-old. And I said, Even if every bone is broken, I said, I must go back. I have to go back. And then he asked me again. He addressed me by name again. And I said the same thing. I said, I must go back. It was unequivocal. I absolutely had no hesitation. I had to go back. And then he threw me into this kind of vortex. And it was really something to be in an astral body and really have a body. I mean, I had a body. I had hands and I had feet, and I could feel myself holding on to the edge of this thing. And it was spinning. It was this massive spinning thing. And it spun, and slammed me back into my body. And then I woke up and I didn't feel very good. I was on the ground still, and it was interesting because the priest actually was there, and he knelt down at my ear and he said, "Boy, Andrea, something or somebody, probably your grandmother, saved you tonight." And I knew he was right, because we get to the hospital, we do all kinds of tests and x-rays, and I have not one broken bone. I have a run in my pantyhose. That's it. But my whole body was so black and blue that like I had a 1-year-old at the time, and I was not able to hold him for about a year. I had really huge trouble like navigating stairs, or it took me a long time to get my body back in shape. But even that was incredible what it gave, because I couldn't hold my baby. So I used to put him all the time in one of those bundle buggy things, it's like a knapsack, but you wear it on the front.
Mhm.
Now, this child is 34 today, and he still likes to cuddle. And he never, even when I was able to finally put him in a stroller, he never went in a stroller. He always wanted to cuddle, and he always wanted to be close. And at 25 years old, 6 feet tall, he still would come and sit in my lap and give me the biggest hug. And I realized that it went back to having him in that bundle buggy for a whole year. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
So I didn't realize right away, but really weird stuff was happening. And it was all about my grandmother and I. Now, I found this all out later because I asked, and I had to, go to mediums and say, okay, what's going on here? My grandmother basically and I had made a pact that she was going to walk in and be with me in my body. Now, I didn't know this at the beginning, but I knew things were weird because I didn't feel like myself. At first I thought, okay, you got mashed up and hit by a car. But then I started doing all the things like she used to do, like her terrible table manners and her awful way of, sorry, Grandma, but it's true, her way of eating, and like with her mouth open and food falling and burping and all this stuff. I started doing all these things. And that's when I realized something was going on. And then she started to talk to me. And this was amazing. This is what really changed the whole trajectory of my life. It's funny because even talking about the walk-in part, I didn't talk about that for a very long time because I thought, oh, everybody's going to think I'm crazy. And then I'm like, Andrea, it's enough. Get over yourself and offer what happened to help other people know how much we are so much more than we think, and how we're loved. And there's always opportunity every day and nudges every day to be more. So my grandmother, one of the first things she said to me when she started talking to me was, go get my books. So I'm like, what are you talking about? And she explained to me where her books were and whose basement and what they were. And I went and I got them. And I started reading them. Now, the books were a series of books. and they were called The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East.
Oh,
You know those books?
I know about them. Yes, I think I
Baird,
read some of them.
Baird T. Spalding. And I know I opened the books, and of course, my grandmother's notes and her scribbles are all over the books. I couldn't understand them. I said, I'm really sorry, Grandma, but I can't understand them. Hi, Lowell. Do you want to say something? Please just interrupt anytime. It's totally fine.
No, thank you.
Okay. So I couldn't read the books, and I put them away. And then she said, okay, I'm going to teach you about patience and tolerance and forgiveness. It's like she went through the virtues one after another. I'm going to teach you about one of the toughest, I would say one of the last ones that we touched on was full and total acceptance. And this was challenged by the death of my child, because when you have a child go into spirit and you just, it just challenges you completely. And so acceptance, and I just would ask for it. So my grandmother was there with me often. And what was so beautiful was as we were being loaded into this ambulance, my husband and I were both in the same ambulance, like on these stretchers and all tied up and everything. I looked over at him and I knew my marriage was over and that something had saved me for some higher purpose and that I was not going to live without love. But at the time, I didn't recognize the most amazing role that he played in pushing me forward. Had it been different, had he agreed to provide for myself and my 3 children, who knows what would have happened, but he didn't. And so he declared bankruptcy and he stopped all child support. And then my grandmother stepped in. Now, she stepped in before he declared bankruptcy, like she saw what was coming. And she told me one day, she said, Andrea, go make a logo. We're going into business. And I'm like, what are we going to do? And believe it or not, she told me exactly where this picture was to get her face and likeness and go make a logo. And she says, we're going to make granola. Now, my grandmother had always made a homemade granola, and my mother made it, and I made it. And I'm like, I'm going into business selling granola? So I did as she asked, because when your dead grandmother says, go make a logo, you go make a logo. Now, at the time, I had very little money, and I had a friend who was a graphic artist. And for $250, she made the most beautiful logo that I used for many years. And I started making granola, and it was my grandmother's nudge, one thing after another, after another. I didn't really know. I had a logo, I had a label, but how do you turn that into a business? What do you do once, how do you make a food business when you don't know anything about a food business? You have 3 little kids to take care of and no money. So I asked her, I said, Grandma, what do I do now? And one day, this little cat runs into our house, and my kids want to keep the cat. It was my youngest son's birthday. And I say, okay, we'll take the cat to the vet. And if the vet checks him out okay, we'll keep the cat. And when I go to the vet, I meet a woman. It's amazing how all the dots connect. And this woman was putting on an event, a breakfast event, and she needed an amazing product for this breakfast event, but she wanted something healthy. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I make great granola. And she wanted it. And I figured 10 women would sit around a table, but it was 1,000 people at the largest hotel in Montreal, the Queen Elizabeth Hotel. Over 1,000 people. And I said, yes, I'll do it, because it was just too uncanny, all these coincidences. And so I found a caterer, I borrowed his kitchen, I made the granola, I gave it to the event. I walked around the ballroom of the Queen Elizabeth Hotel that morning, and all these people were asking me, wow, where do you get this product? It's amazing. And I'm like, well, you can't get it anywhere. And then the light bulb went off, and I thought, Grandma, shit. And I started. And my first potential customer was that hotel. So I started calling. It took me 2 weeks just to get the executive chef on the phone. And you know what he said to me when I got him? He said, Andrea, he said, I'm never there for breakfast. I'm always there for dinners and roast beef and the big event at night. But that morning, he said, I was there. And I'm the guy who spooned the granola into the bowls. And then he said, you know what? He said, I hated it. Come and see me tomorrow morning at 6:00. And I knew he didn't hate it. And I knew this was my first test. Because can you imagine like going to an appointment at 6:00 in the downtown area when you have 3 little kids? Like just the logistics of getting a babysitter to come in at 5:30 in the morning. It's so different for a single mom. You always have a consideration of your kids. Always. So I went, and he became my first customer. And not only did he become my first customer, his name was Executive Chef John Cordeau. And he not only became my first customer, but he became like a spokesman for Grandma Emily's Granola. That's what I called the company. My grandmother's name is Emily, and the rest is history. And we worked, and I moved the company 4 or 5 times. And of course, I couldn't get any credit. No bank would help me. But I had a very generous brother who was willing to lend me money just on a handshake to buy machines and to upgrade because when you're in the food business, it's complicated. And yeah, so the rest is history. I started in 1997 and worked like a dog and sold the company in 2015. And then I didn't have to work anymore because I had no debt because I was never able to borrow anything. And then when I could have borrowed, I didn't need to anymore. I did basically something they call bootstrapping. And that's what I tell everybody now. Live below your means. That's the key. Live below your means. And my grandmother, by the way, was a huge presence in that business. Friday afternoons, I'd send everybody off. I loved owning a business, by the way. I loved it. I loved having staff. I loved finding people who were undervalued, who were underappreciated, and letting them shine. And boy, did they shine. I mean, I didn't make this business happen by myself. When I sold the business, I had 16 employees, and everybody was part of the success of Grandma Emily's Granola. You can go online now and Google Grandma Emily's Granola, and there's a ton of stuff out there about it. Yeah. So Friday afternoons, and it would be so much fun to do this because let's say it was a beautiful day. I'd kick everybody out at 2:00. I'd say, leave, I'm paying you till 5. Don't tell your husbands that you left at 2. Just go have fun, whatever. And I'd walk around the plant with my grandmother. I'd walk in the warehouse and in the whole production area and in the front. And she would say to me, you did this right, you did this wrong. This you got to change. This is good. She was a very tough taskmaster. She really was. Yeah. And then one day I needed to have a very minor surgery, but it was under general anesthetic. And when I woke up, she was gone. Oh, did I cry? I said, Grandma, where are you going? And you know what she said to me? She said, I'm going to the Omega. And I didn't understand at the time what she meant. I'm going to the Omega. Yeah, that meant she was just going all the way. And she also told me that she was making space. And then my daughter, Courey, passed in 2016. And because of this near-death experience and all these gifts that had slowly been growing in me, Courey started talking to me. And my grandmother said, I don't want you to get us mixed up. I want it to be so clear for you. And I'll be around if ever you need me, but it's like I didn't really need the support anymore. You know, the business was thriving. It was really hard. I worked so hard, but the result was in 2015, I was able to sell the business. I went away, I took a break, and I was in Italy with a knapsack on my back, and I got a phone call that my daughter Chloe was sick. And I came back. I had 1 free month. And I was so grateful that I had sold the business because now I had time to take care of Chloe. Isn't it amazing how it all happens? Like, it's just boggles my mind. So this is my lovely Chloe. Here. There she is.
Oh, conversations with Chloe. Oh,
And I will happily send the PDF of that book to Dick, and he can distribute it to all of you if you wish to read it. It's really a divine gift.
oh.
So what happens is I'm taking care of Chloe and she needs to go into palliative care. She's falling. I can't lift her anymore. So on the 20th of January, 2016, they decide she's going into palliative care. But that was the same day that I was giving a large speech, because at this point, everybody thought I was this amazing entrepreneur. I had started a business at home with nothing, no experience, no money, selling across the country, yada, yada, yada. But they didn't know, actually, my secret weapon was my grandmother. Completely. I never take credit for making that business a success. So the 20th of January, Chloe goes into palliative care, and I'm supposed to give this big speech, and there are tickets and it's all sold out. And I'm like, how do I do this? What do I do? And I say, so I always ask Spirit, I said, Lord, what do I do? It's so simple when you can sit and get still. And it's like, how do you explain how you hear guidance? I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's a muscle. I think you just work it and you improve it, and it's always positive, and it's always to everybody's benefit. It's never negative. It just feels inspired. So I asked, what do I do? And because I could have canceled and it would have been justified, like, I could have. And I was told, do the speech and then go to the hospital. So I did the speech, and it was really good. And it was funny because I was like, I'm seeing all these young women, it was at a college, and I'm thinking of Chloe in palliative care and all these young girls, and it was not easy. And as I drove back to the hospital, I took my time and I drove along this lakeshore road, and I thought to myself, I want to rent a little spot somewhere here along the lake to recover when Chloe passes, just for a month, just so that I could be totally surrounded by beauty and not be at home. I didn't want to be in the same place that I had taken care of her for the last year. So I went to the hospital, spent that first day with her, and then got home that night, and I Googled little house by the waterfront in Point Claire, and this little cottage pops up. And I text the owner and I say, I'm not sure exactly, but I'd like to rent it. Let's say today's January 20th. I'm not sure. 1st of April. I'll rent it from the 1st of April. Now, Chloe passed on February 18, 218. You know what the address of this house is? 218.
218.
218. So there was a large house on the water, and there was a little cottage that was on Airbnb, and it was a little 400 square foot, 1 room, and that's what I rented. And I get in there, I took it as of the 1st of April, and it was so perfect. And I wrote Chloe a letter, and I said, Chloe, you would love this place. One little room right on the water, the birds, the ducks, the sky, the big, big sky, because I was right in front of a huge body of water that was 5 kilometers wide, or in miles, that was like 3 miles maybe. So as I'm getting up to burn my letter in my little wood stove, I hear her say, Mom, you are so easy to find, it's a joke. Those were Chloe's first words to me, and they were nothing divine. They were nothing, they were, Mom, you're so easy to find, it's a joke. That's what she said. And I'm like, what do you mean, Chloe? Now, I had been talking to my grandmother for years, right? So it's not like it was the biggest shock. And in fact, Chloe spoke to me after she passed when I was at the hospital, standing right beside her. But she says to me, Mom, you're so easy to find, it's a joke. This was so beautiful. I said, what do you mean? She said, Mom, when you pray, you send out light, and we see the light. Oh my God. Our prayers are real, and they see the light. Isn't that incredible? I mean, every single one of us, you know, Angela, when you talk to your husband and you talk to your boys and you pray and it's all real. I'll tell you a little funny anecdote. I'm just going to take a sidebar. My kids are little and their father is picking them up for the weekend, right? So my 3 kids are going off with their dad for the weekend, and he took them often on the weekends. And I would pray to Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel, please protect my kids, keep them safe, like just take care of them, bring them home safe. And I would pray to Gabriel often when their father took the kids. One day, I am actually in a mediumship development circle because I had to try to understand some of these incredible phenomena that was happening. Nobody knew that I prayed to Gabriel when my kids went off with their dad. All of a sudden, Gabriel comes through, one of the mediums, and he says, Andrea, he says, that's enough. I'm like, huh? He says, you only have to ask me once. Only have to ask me once. I was like, oh my God, told off by an angel. But I realized when Chloe said to me, years later, Mom, we see your light. Our prayers are real and they hear them. Yeah, they really do. Yeah. So I began talking to Chloe from my little cottage by the water. And I had the time, right? I had no more business to take care of, and I didn't have Chloe to take care of. So I had time to heal. And the coolest thing was she was like, okay, Mom, she would wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning. She actually would grind her chin into my shoulder. And in fact, it still has a pain there sometimes, believe it or not. And I would open my computer and she would say, Mom, just close your eyes and write my words. And when I closed my eyes and typed the words she told me, I would hear in my head, I didn't make a spelling mistake. Isn't that crazy? And when I type my words, I make tons of spelling mistakes. So then she said, we were just typing and talking, and I would ask her questions and what's it like and where are you? And she said, Mom, we're going to write a book. And I'm like, I don't want to write a book. By this point, I was teaching entrepreneurship at McGill University. I'm like an entrepreneurial professor. I don't want to write a book about this and have people read this and then question my sanity, et cetera, et cetera. She's like, no way. She says, you're not giving up on me now. You are not going to back out on me now. I said, okay. And so we wrote a book, and it took 5 months, and it's such a divine gift, this book. And it's not just about our relationship at all. It's about so much more. So I want to read something to you. Because at one point, I find out, that so many parents with kids in spirit would love to be communicating with their kids. And yes, what greater gift could I offer to a parent than helping them raise their vibration and giving them some kind of something to help them communicate? So I asked Chloe. It was really cool. I'm telling you, she would only come at about 4 a.m. And sometimes it would last 10 minutes and sometimes it would last 2 hours. But so I took down something. It took me 5 days and it was really rough. It was like, I'm like a super healthy eater. And those 5 days, all I could do was eat junk. That's all I wanted to eat was salt and salt. And it was like I needed to ground myself somehow. I still don't understand exactly why I ate so poorly during those 5 days, but I did. I had so much close spirit with me that it was hard on me. So I asked her at one point, I said, give me something. Let me help other people. She said, okay, preparation's the key, Mom. We're going to call it the 12 steps to bridging. And she said, they aren't necessarily in sequence, except for the first one. This is hard. This is hard stuff. This isn't easy stuff. Grief is such a all-consuming process. And so she said, except number one has to be number one. And number one is all is as it should be. That's number one. So acceptance. So I really worked on acceptance. So this is what she wrote. Now, remember when it's Chloe's words. So the book is written that her words are in like a script and my words are just straight type. And she told me, Ma, you're not allowed to edit my words. So I couldn't edit. I know. I couldn't edit her words. I said, well, then they better be perfect. If I can't edit your words, girl, they better be perfect. Like I talked to her exactly as I would have talked to her if she was sitting right in front of me, which in a way she was sitting right in front of me. I had 2 occasions, by the way, when I saw her.
Oh.
But that's another story. Yeah, it was really cool. Oh, what a gift. And I had one occasion when I saw my grandmother, like totally perfectly materialize in front of me as I'm on the highway. I'm doing 100 and 80 miles an hour. And there she is in my windshield. Perfect. Like the way we are seeing each other right now. I have to tell you another little sidebar story too. My husband and I, when we did get divorced that next year, just a few months later, we went to the same lawyer and the thing was very amicable because he knew that, it had been whatever, not good. And my total bill for my divorce was $1,100. That was my bill. Now, my mother had just finalized all my grandmother's estate and calls me up and says, Andrea, I don't know why, but I think there's a very little bit of money left in your grandmother's account. Now, she has like 9 grandchildren. Why me? But my mother says, I think you are supposed to have this money. And she sends me a check and it's like $1,106. It is exactly the price of my divorce from my grandmother. Isn't that beautiful? Oh my God, did I cry? Thank you, thank you, thank you. And when you're a mom with 3 kids, you feel a lot of guilt by breaking up a marriage. But she's like, oh no, you had to break up that marriage. Otherwise you would not have survived. So back to the 12 steps of bridging. I'm going to maybe Dick, you could do it. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm hearing some static, but it doesn't matter as long as you hear. Okay. So fundamental to this initiative is the understanding that all is as it should be with the world. There will be much evidence to contradict that statement, Ignore it. This is the toughest step. It's called acceptance. All is as it should be. This applies to all things in life and death. Not only are there no mistakes in life, just lessons, but there are no errors in death. Every life is appropriate and of the correct length. Imagine learning and accepting that. This fundamental knowing may be the subject of study during multiple lifetimes, or it may be known instantly. It requires the full acceptance of death as a part of life. That's a tall order. And that's number one. And then it goes on and she gives 11 other steps. And one of the steps is to raise your vibration, to connecting with spirit. One of the steps is to raise your vibration, and that communicating across the veil involves the vibrational compatibility of both parties on either side. And it goes on and on and on. So I was doing sound like, in the closet kind of thing. And Chloe's the one who pushed me and said, Mom, what about all those parents, who want to communicate with their kids? Well, I approached an organization called Helping Parents Heal. And they didn't know me. And I said, this is what I do. I do sound healing, and I'd like to offer it to parents. And so I started doing that. And it's been a few years now. And I do a session once a month. They always record them. And even if there are not a lot of people always online live, the sessions are recorded so they can be replayed. And they help. And they help people. And I get testimonials from people saying, wow, I really was skeptical and I didn't think it would work. And I use, at the same time, I sort of incorporate in the sound healings some of the psychic gifts I was given. I'll give you an example. Does anybody have a question, by the way? Because it's like 11 o'clock. I've been talking for a long time. Before I give that example, does anybody? No? Okay.
I don't see any questioner.
So I'm doing a sound healing and I see a book. I see a book in front of me, and it's by Robert Schwartz. Oh, Your Soul's Plan. Such a great author. If you want to learn more about the way we plan and the soul groups that we exist with, it's so fascinating to look at all the people in your life. Some of them, they may just have cameo appearances, come in and out, but some of them are really like definitive in your life to help you grow. And I see this book, and right there in the middle of the sound healing, I say to the parents, I see this book. Somebody in this group needs to read this book. And I get a message from a lady who said, my husband didn't want to come to the sound healing. He really didn't want to do it. He was skeptical. He didn't believe. He has that book on his night table, and it's been there for like 4 months, and he hasn't opened it. So not only did he get the enrichment of the sound, he got the message that he has to read that book. And she said, now he's going to read the book. So sometimes one little bit of mediumship can make a difference, can help somebody, and sort of can shift someone into starting to go down the path of realizing that all is as it should be. It's a tough path. It's really the toughest. Yeah. Well, that's that story. So what else can I say? Oh, I have more. You know that little house that I was living in? So the owner lived in the big house next door. And because I had started communicating with him to rent the little house the day Chloe went into palliative care, we started texting back and forth. And you know what he did? He made me laugh. I would walk into the palliative care ward and I would be laughing. People would look at me and I would realize laughter is so powerful. You need to laugh in palliative care. You need to laugh. You need to be able to lift the energy of the place. So before I even met this guy, before I even had a clue what he looked like or anything, I was falling in love with this guy for sure, because he was making me laugh. So I got here, I rented the place for a month, and then another month, and then another month, and then I stayed for a year and a half. And then there were issues and problems and different conflicts with other whatever, stuff that people have, and I left. And we didn't speak for 3 years. 3 years we did not speak, this gentleman and I, until August of 2020. And I've been living with him ever since. So I know, isn't that crazy? So now we live in the big house together and the little house is over there. Yeah. I know, that's a wow. I know. It's true, Kathy. It's crazy. And he is in the book, trust me, because how could I write that book about Chloe and I and what was happening at the time without including John? I mean, yeah, he's in there. And it's all really honest, because one thing that I told her, I said, we cannot sugarcoat things. We cannot just, I don't want to portray myself as perfect or, infallible or whatever. No way. It has to be real, because in order for me to get your words clear, and in order for me to be clear, it's got to be real. And so that's that. Yeah. So now I live in the big house with John. Yeah. And the little house is actually rented to somebody else right now.
How did you connect with John?
I went on the internet and I Googled for a little house by the water in Point Claire. And this little house was on Airbnb. And that's how I found that little house. And John is the owner of this big house and that little house. And that's how I met him.
Well, I understand that, but how did you reconnect with him 3 years later?
3 years later, I had a nudge. It was his birthday. I figured it's his birthday, August 25th. And I called him. And we had not spoken, not a word. And my heart just was so sad. And then when I heard his voice, and you know what he said? He's a sailor, okay? And he said, let's go sailing. And I knew when he said that because when you're on a boat, you leave the shore, you leave your cares, you leave all that baggage behind. There's something extraordinary about being out on a boat. And we sailed that afternoon and we talked. And then slowly, we worked everything out. And I have to say, I grew up a lot. I learned a lot about how to navigate a relationship with somebody who has children and who has grandchildren and who has a whole life. I learned that my ego would sabotage my well-being every time if I let it. Mm-hmm. And I learned that, I know this might sound crazy, but I learned that the Holy Spirit would always guide me properly if I would let it. And so I decided, and this is like the most amazing practice of my life, is just to breathe. This is what I do. Whenever I think of it, and I don't think of it enough, but whenever I think of it, I do it. I breathe in the Holy Spirit and I breathe out the Holy Spirit. Call it what you will. Give it whatever name you wish to give it. But it puts me in a place of peace and openness and stillness, and so that I can hear constructive wisdom and not let my ego and my old programs and my feelings of being worried about being, whatever, abandoned or mistreated take over. So that's what I do. Yeah. And that nudge came, and I was like, oh, it's his birthday, August 25th. How can he refuse to speak to me on his birthday? And he spoke to me, and we went sailing. And that was that. It took a while. It took a few months, slowly, slowly. Yeah. And now I tell him, like, I will be with you till your last breath. There is no question. I will be with you. Yeah. So I mean that just of all the things Chloe brought into my life, wow. And for the address of this house to be 218, it's just no, it's unreal. I'll tell you, can I tell you another sign? Great sign, because Chloe tells me amazing signs. She gives me incredible signs. I am at a conference. We're in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's a conference for a group called Helping Parents Heal, which I mentioned before. All kids in spirit. There's like 1,000 people at this conference. And I am doing something called the Sound Lounge. So I have my own room, and up on the wall is a huge 8-foot by 6-foot screen, and it's a PowerPoint that's just scrolling through 900 pictures of all our magnificent children in spirit. What a PowerPoint. And I am in this room. I have all my sound stuff in the room, and there's about 120 chairs. And I get in the room and I start doing sort of my own version of sound for people who come in and who are watching the PowerPoint. And all the equipment that runs the PowerPoint dies. So we call the technicians and everybody's in a tizzy. And I say, you know what? I'll put that PowerPoint on my computer. No problem. I'm in here for 3 days. I'll run the PowerPoint. The next morning, I start running that PowerPoint on my computer. And after about 10 minutes, the whole thing crashes. And I'm trying and I'm feeling so bad and I'm trying to get the thing to work. And then I look up at the PowerPoint. Guess whose picture out of 900 kids is up on that screen? Miss Chloe. And there are people in the room. So that's cool. It's not just me finding a feather. It's Miss Chloe up on the screen showing all these people that somehow, I don't understand it, but she was able to get more control of my computer. Anyway, so I look and I see her picture up there. And it was this picture because I had taken this picture the summer before. So this is the picture that's up there on the screen in living color. So I say, Chloe, how did you do that? And you know what the answer was? She said, Mom, you make it so easy. There's that word easy again. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you don't doubt. Isn't that cool? You don't doubt. So it's like I run down the hall to get my partner, John, who's there with me. And he's having breakfast. And I said, Johnny, you got to come and see. Chloe's up on the screen. And he comes back and he sees her on the screen. And then she basically takes me by the scruff of the shirt and leads me down the hallway to this family. Now, I am completely, basically like a puppet. I'm just doing what I am told to do. I'm not thinking, I'm not processing it, I'm not rationalizing it. I don't know these people, they don't know me. And I go right up to this young man. He's about 14. He's there with his family. And I tell them my story, and I tell them what Chloe just did. And then I basically say, gee, I'm really sorry. Like, I hope I didn't screw up your day. See you later. That afternoon at 4:00, I'm in my sound lounge and that family walks in and they sit down. Right? And this young man says to me, thank you. He said, that story completely changed my whole approach to the whole day. I was open and I was receptive and I decided not to doubt. And that was that. Yep. So that's one amazing thing. Another time, I pick up my phone in the morning and I turn on my phone and it says Chloe is fine. I'm like, what? And as soon as I pick up the phone and I see that, it goes away. But Chloe is fine. Yeah. Isn't that something? And I could go on. But you see, it's like when you know, when not when you think or when you imagine, but when you know that there is no death, it's like I don't need signs. I have many, many signs, and I have this open heart now and this sense that every time I do sound, I ask Miss Chloe to come and join me and help me and reach the hearts of all the people that I do sound for. And yeah, and I have so many other stories, so many other things, crazy things that happen. But that's not important. What's important is that we know that all is as it should be. And that is tough. It is. But that oneness changes everything. You know, there's the eclipse happening Monday, and we are right in the path. And it's called the path of totality. I love that phrase, the path of totality. And the other day I was doing a sound session and I could feel the spirit saying, to prompt everybody to reflect on their own path of totality, which is our path towards oneness, our path towards completeness. Yeah, the path of totality. Yeah, that is the path that the moon is taking with the sun. And as it completely covers the sun, it's called the path of totality. And we each have our path of totality. So I'm going to leave it open to questions. Ask me whatever you'd like. If I can answer, I most certainly will. If you want me to read a little bit from Conversations with Chloe, I will. You know what I can do? I can put the PDF of this book, I can put it actually in the chat. And that way, anybody who wants to, here, let me see if it goes in. I think it's gonna go. Yep. It's actually in there. And anybody who wishes to drag it from there and download it from there is welcome to do so. You know, that's the thing. Especially Angela, don't doubt. Never doubt. You've probably had, I'm sure, you've had I mean, you know your house is filled. You know it. Filled with spirit. So, Conversations with Chloe is there. And I did a master's degree in educational leadership. And I decided to interview some of the most amazing shamans. And I went down to the bottom of Australia. Imagine, far. And I met some amazing, wise people who taught me, especially this one man, Tony, he taught me about clearing. When you get home, when you see other people, when you have people come in your home and they leave, to always keep the energy clear. And he talked about how to do that. And there are so many different modalities, you know, in some they burn tobacco or incense or sage or Palo Santo, but to remember to keep yourself as a clear vessel. And yeah, that also applies to so this is just like a beautiful, I use this when I clear, and I use Palo Santo, which is a wood from Brazil. And these trees, basically they fall on the forest floor and then they're cultivated. Here we go. It's also professional. Thank you for sharing as you are doing. You're welcome. So this is a message from Lowell. I love the combination. You were an electrical engineer and a professional psychic. And it's funny because there are like psychics in every domain, you know, accountants and doctors and everything. I mean, and why not? We're always combining ourselves with spirit to serve. So, Dick, what would you like to ask?
Maybe you could lead us in a guided meditation with the sound bowl.
I could. I think what would be nice is to mute everyone. I'm going to give you a tool, and I'm also going to put it. Everyone is born a psychic. That's right. I'm going to put it also in the chat. So at one point, I had so much incredible phenomena happening in my life that I wanted to make sense of it. And I went to a school in England, and I didn't realize at the time that the school that I went to was like the formal school for mediumship. It was called the Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Studies. So I'm there and I'm a complete neophyte. I don't know anything about anything. And there are people there that have been like platform mediums for 30 years, just going for refreshers. And one day but when you're there and you're taking these courses, it's amazing. Your skills go completely through the roof because you're just eating and breathing it all day and all night. And one day I'm walking down the hallway and one of my teachers stops me and says, you know, we don't give readings as we're walking down hallways. If you want a reading, you have to book it and pay for it. But, she said, I have to tell you that you have a pyramid on your hip. And she proceeded to explain to me what it was and that I was going to use it. And so I have put it there in the chat, but we're going to use it now. Okay. And this is a great gift to all of us. You can use this when you're doing any kind of, anytime you want to be still, anytime you want to be centered, even if you can't sleep in the middle of the night. You can use it. I have lots of people who use it like for chemo and radiation, and they use it when they're going in for an MRI, and that noise, they just become completely centered and still. So this is what we're going to do. Okay? So I invite you now to simply sit back, land. We just got to forget about all the words I just said. There's a lot of words. I'm just going to just breathe in, breathe out. Nothing more valuable than a conscious breath. Breath in through the nose. Hey, could you mute yourself? That would just help me. Thanks. Thank you. Words carry a lot of energy, take up a lot of space. I would just clear them away. A couple of conscious breaths. It's amazing, you know, when you think we breathe and we so rarely take a moment to breathe consciously. So with our eyes closed, in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, and out through the mouth. You know, it already helps us land. You can sort of feel yourself beginning to land and just shed all that talk, all that drama, all that story. Just forget it all. Just let it all go. We all have this drama. Everyone, their own journey. Blessed and guided and never alone. And we can feel ourselves already letting go. All those words. Relaxing into our chairs. And imagine now that you are seated, because you know our imagination is the most wonderful tool. And our inner world is so rich. And so we imagine ourselves now seated on this beautiful piece of wood. Beautiful deep color with grains, and it's as if you're becoming one with all the movement of that wood. And as you look around in your mind's eye, you see that there are 4 large triangles on the ground around you. There's one in front, it's on the ground, one in back, and there's one on the right, and there's one on the left. And so using that power of our imagination, we imagine looking to the right, and we just ask this first triangle to come up. And it's a magnificent crystalline structure. It's the first side of a 4-sided pyramid, and it emits the most beautiful red light. And then we look to the left, and the second triangle is on the ground and it's just waiting for us to say, come on up. And up it comes, and the apex of the second triangle touches the first side. And this one, ooh, beautiful, deep, deep purple. So you have the red light coming in from the right and the purple coming in from the left. And the third side, you can't see it, but it's behind you and you know it's there. And so you ask it to come and join the other two, and up it comes. And this one, this is the soft mother light blue. And then the fourth side in front needs no introduction, and it doesn't even need to be asked, because it's vibrating and it wants to join the other 3 sides. And it comes up, 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 and perfectly fits together. This one is the deep gold. And you have just created in your mind's eye a pyramid of light, of red light coming in on the right, purple on the left, light blue from the back and gold in the front. And then all this light begins to move It moves, starting at your ankles, moves around your body. It's like this soft, gentle vortex of light, mixing and swirling. It goes up your legs, up the torso and the neck, up around the head. And when it reaches the crown of your head, the crown opens like a vase and down comes the light. And this is a cool part. You can use this light, send it anywhere in your body you wish it to go. Just send it. Down it comes. Down the head and the neck and across the shoulders. It goes down your arms and your hands and out your fingers. You can imagine all this light coming out each finger. And then it moves, continues down your torso. Oh, you could see it actually going around your vertebrae, and it's all mixed, so mixed now that this light is just pure white, 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 down the legs, down to the feet, and this light now moves out the soles of the feet, down into the ground, creating roots of light, grounding us, keeping us well and safe, and opening us up for sound. And now I invite you to simply follow the sound. Just breathe it in and breathe it out. Use the breath, and you can feel your cells filling with vibration. And like all other worthwhile endeavors, the more we do this, the more we connect. It's a perfect moment to suggest an affirmation that speaks to you. On the in-breath, we can say, I am. And on the exhale, whatever you wish to say. I am oneness, I am peace, I am precious, I am precious. I am unique and valuable. And so the pyramid of light even though it's imaginary, it is powerful. And everything that is thought and said and done while it's up is magnified. And now we slowly and so gently begin to take down this pyramid of light, remembering that it is a tool for us to use, a gift. We take it down in the opposite way that we put it up. And so the gold in front of us comes down first, and then the light blue behind, and then slowly, slowly the purple comes down, and then the red. And all the love and the vibrations, the light remains with us to be shared lovingly with ourselves and others as we wish. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes. I'd like to show you something. This has happened in different degrees, but not ever like it happened this one time. I was doing a sound session on Zoom, and I've been trained by my daughter to not doubt. And I get in my head one word, and the word is now. That's it, now. And when I get that word, I take my tube, which I don't have here, and I blow. And I know it's coming through, and it's going to everyone on the screen, no matter where they are. It could be on the moon. And this one particular day, this one lady who was there heard the word in her head too, and started taking picture of the screen. And this is what she took. I don't know if you can see it. It is me completely in a pyramid of light. Just totally and completely wrapped in light, in this amazing divine light. It's never happened quite that way since. It's happened, other things have happened. And so for me, the more I share, the more I receive confirmation. Yeah. And that's what we're all encouraged to do, to share what we receive, share what we live and get, and what our gifts are. That is our gift of love, is service. And the more you do that, you know, the doubt is gone. Like, it's just gone now. So I actually have a sound healing. I'm doing it at 1:00 every Saturday. I do it. And if anybody wants to be, you know, part of those, just send me your email, and I'll add you to our list. And there's a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Goldman, who is very well known for the sound work that he does. And he had said in an interview a few days ago that he was doing a sound healing and he saw himself inside a pyramid of light. So one of the ladies that joins me sent me that, said, Andrea, Jonathan Goldman said he saw the pyramid. I'm like, well, yeah, you know, it's there. It's there if you place it. And he saw it without even consciously creating it. And it's a powerful thing. So that ends my part